How we doing? This is part 3 of QB Development 101. I'm Kyle Richardson with Clemson Football. I'm an offensive assistant and director of high school relations. This presentation is going to be on QB defensive recognition and film study. So teaching a quarterback how to recognize a defense and how to study film, which I think as coaches we don't do a very good job of teaching players how to study film. So this would kind of jump into that. This is part 3 of a 5-part series. This is kind of the order that I've put them in and build off of as we go through these presentations. So QB philosophy is one. If you haven't seen it, you can look back and grab it and find it and watch it. Then the second thing we jumped in was some QB drills, some philosophy, some mindset, and then watching some actual drills. This one's going to be QB defensive recognition and film study, and then there'll be 2 more after that. Quarterback meetings, how to have a great quarterback meeting and them get the most out of it and some ideas there. And then QB ideals and intangibles, things that you're looking for in a quarterback, things that you got to teach in a quarterback that necessarily doesn't have anything to do with the defense, film study, drill, that type of thing. Okay, so just a little bit real quick on if this is the first time watching. I went to Appalachian State and I got my bachelor's. And then I've got 2 master's degrees at University of California and Clemson. And I've coached anything from 1A football starting my career to a 5A school to going to Georgia at a big high school. I've coached 1AA in Louisiana. I've been the head coach at Northwestern High in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and now I've been at Clemson for the last 6 years. So for me, the 15 years of my career has come at 2 schools. So I've been blessed to have 15 years worth in just 2 places and to be able to stay in the same state in South Carolina. So the 2 places that I've been that's brought some championships my way is Northwestern High School and Clemson University. 2 undefeated seasons at Northwestern, 1 undefeated season so far at Clemson. A lot of great bowl memories, college playoffs, and a lot of championship games, 6 of them at Northwestern. So I put this up to say this, obviously I've been blessed to have a great career so far and be able to win some championships, but what separated these teams from good teams, great teams, and then special teams when you have that championship season is the quarterback play. If you have a great quarterback that can take his game to another level and become a special quarterback, then you got a shot. Doesn't mean that you're guaranteed going to win it. There's a lot of things that's got to fall in place. But you got a shot, and that's what I want to talk about. That's why I'm doing this 5-part series and just talking a little bit more about quarterbacks and how to develop them so hopefully you could take a good one to a great one and maybe one day take a great one to that special one to where you had that special season. So these are the quarterbacks I had at Northwestern over that 9-year period, 8 seasons, and 5 of them great guys, great people on the field, great people off the field. I think that's important. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the last presentation, QB ideals and intangibles. But all these guys had to be developed. Okay, they were good coming in. They were great and special on the way out. 3 of these guys won state championships. Justin Worley won 1 under me. Mason Rudolph and Gage Maloney are 3 that we won 3 state championships with. Come to Clemson, again, these are the 3 quarterbacks I've been around that I think are special quarterbacks. And we won a national championship with Deshaun. We won a national championship with Trevor, and we were really close to winning a national championship with Kelly. But all 3 had to be developed. All 3 had successful high school careers, but let's be honest, everybody that comes to this level has had a successful high school career. Now, how do we get them to become a great college quarterback? And then, like I said, take them to another level and become special. So let's jump right into it. We're going to talk defensive recognition first and then film study second. There's 2 ways to kind of skin the cat. Some quarterback coaches, and again, I'm talking quarterback play, but you could replace quarterback for your position, all right? But for some people, they like to spend a lot of time teaching defenses and want the quarterback to know everything that everybody's doing on the field. And then some don't spend as much time in the defensive part. They spend more time on, hey, what are we doing? What are we doing to affect the defense? What's our scheme? Okay, so I kind of fall in the middle of those two. I don't want to overcomplicate the defense and have our guys, at the end of the day, our quarterbacks are not training to be defensive coordinators. We're training them to be quarterbacks that go on the field and execute our scheme. So I spend more time developing our scheme mentally in them than I do developing them from a defensive recognition standpoint, but they do still have to know some defense, okay? And either way you do it is fine. It's just my opinion on it and how I do it from a defensive recognition standpoint of my philosophy, okay? So a couple pointers here. QB must understand your defensive lingo, okay? So for example, the safety level for me, I say it's the roof, okay? So how many do we have on the roof, the very top? Do we have one? Do we have two? So when I go, hey, what do we got on the roof? They know immediately I'm talking about the safety level, all right? That highest level. And the reason why I call it the roof is because sometimes you have safeties up there, sometimes you're inverted and you got corners up there, but again, they're at the top of that roof, all right? So that's why I say that whatever your lingo is, they gotta know. So when you're getting into the thick of being on the sideline and it's loud and it's crazy, they can connect and they can understand what you're saying to them because you don't have a lot of time when it comes to those situations. Defensive recognition should be taught every year, okay? So whatever you're teaching your quarterback, your position when it comes to defensive recognition, whether it's a lot, whether it's a little, I think it's got to be reinstalled every year, just like you should be reinstalling your offense every year, regardless of who's coming back and how many years they got under their belt. So base defensive terms, I teach as part of the playbook, okay? And I'll show you a little bit of that here in a second. Don't overcomplicate defensive recognition, okay? Keep it simple, just like your offensive philosophy. If your offensive philosophy, for me, if we sit in here and we're preaching simple, efficient, and 10,000 kicks, I can't turn defensive recognition into something complicated, okay? I got to keep that same mindset, and I think that's important. Defenses don't know what they're doing half the time, so don't expect your quarterback to know it all, okay? And I say this, I spent some time, I like to spend some time with defensive coordinators or in defensive meetings and see what they're saying and thinking and doing. I go to clinics and spend some time with defenses, and I can't tell you how many times, you see something and you go, I'm not sure what that was. It might have been this, it might have been that, and it's because the defense is busted somewhere. They have mental breakdowns just like we have mental breakdowns. But yet we'll sit there and chase a ghost trying to figure out what coverage it is, what blitz it was, why this person didn't do this. And that all that does is just complicate things. And again, your quarterback does not need to be complicated, okay? So don't make it overcomplicated. Keep it simple because the defense is going to bust and they don't need to worry about that, okay? And that's why I like to just keep it kind of base, all right? Okay, so just to kind of reiterate, if you've seen the other two presentations, and this is kind of in a nutshell what I believe in. Okay, I believe in reps, and I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. So this is all about reps. It's all about being able to kick it 10,000 times. We've talked about learning pyramid, which we'll talk a little bit more in QB meetings, but how they retain information. All right, and then the mindset, keeping it simple, keeping it efficient, and being able to kick it 10,000 times in reps. I want you to remember that as you're talking defensive recognition with your quarterbacks, as you're talking film study with your quarterbacks, okay? And that's why I threw that up. All right, so it comes down to 4 parts for me. All right, this is the way I like to kind of go through defensive recognition. I like to have a defensive recognition 101 type class, the base stuff. Let's introduce it. Let's get them feeling good about it. Let's have some defensive recognition in film cut-ups. Let's have some defensive recognition flashcards, and then we're going to play some defensive recognition chess, okay? And I'm going to explain all 4 of those here now. So for me, defensive recognition 101, this is a screenshot of a PowerPoint that I put together. And I put together a PowerPoint, and it's just defense. You can see the label up there, Defense 101. And I go in and I create what my lingo is, what I want them to know my lingo is, and I've got it in this PowerPoint, okay? I've got, I start off with fronts and blitzes and coverages and defensive terms, things that they need to know. Again, I'm keeping it base, I'm keeping it simple, but I need them to know when I say fire, they know it's anything coming off the edge. So when I go Will fire, Mike fire, Sam fire, they know, hey, that's the Will linebacker coming off the edge. You know, we go poker and poker switch again. They know exactly what's happening. When I go, hey, that was an over front, they know exactly what I'm talking about. So they've got to learn this stuff. This is, again, the Defensive Recognition 101 playbook. And I just got it in a PowerPoint, okay? So you can see here, this is how it's set up. They would be learning it just like they would be learning their offensive playbook. Here's a shot of a coverage, okay? So I've gone through the coverages and hey, here's what the coverages are named, and then let's get a little bit more in depth on it, all right? So here's cover 4. You'll hear quarters, okay? I give them some tips up top. I tell them where the weakness is in this coverage. I tell them what everybody's doing, okay? Now again, it's just base. I'm not gonna throw up 10 different fronts and all the different ways you can get to quarters. I'm just gonna put up, this is quarters, all right? Because in my opinion, a defense can only get to 4 or 5 coverages when it all comes down to and the ball snapped and it's time to play football. Now, how they get to all those different coverages are going to be different, right? But I don't want to bog down in the weeds and those details. At the end of the day, it's 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. How are they getting there, okay? Don't worry about that. Just understand once they get there, here's what it looks like, okay? I give some notes over here, and then again, I give some weaknesses to this coverage. And I go through them all, okay? So we got thirds, halves, so cover 3, cover 2, cover 1. And then I'll go through and put some different things together. You know, if it's a cover 4 or a 4 read, you know, maybe I give them a little bit extra there, but this is the base of how I'm going to teach them Defensive Recognition 101, okay? Talking about defensive recognition film cut-ups. Now I'm going to take that base stuff that I just did in that PowerPoint, and I'm going to put some film cut-ups to it so they can actually see it live and see how people, hey, here they are pre-snap, but here they are post-snap, just in that quarters look, all right, or vice versa. So just some reminders on defensive recognition film cut-ups. Don't overwhelm them with 1,000 clips, okay? Keep the cut-ups simple, base, all right? And then use the cut-ups to reiterate the Defensive Recognition 101 PowerPoint. So it doesn't help you to go in there and give them 1,000 clips of cover 4. They're not going to retain 1,000 clips of cover 4. Give them about 10 to 20 max and let them really study the intricacies of quarters coverage. But they're hitting it 10 to 20. Again, simple, efficient, they'll be able to kick it 10,000 times. Keep the cut up simple. If you've talked about cover 4 and you've just talked cover 4, you haven't talked 4 read, you haven't talked 4 man, it's just cover 4, they shouldn't be in a cut up watching 4 read, 4 man and go, oh yeah, well that's another version of cover 4, we'll talk about that later, but yet it's in the cut up that you want them to watch right now. All right, so again, keep it simple, keep it base. And then use cut-ups, like I said, the same thing. Use cut-ups that reiterate the Defensive Recognition 101. Don't sprinkle in some cut-ups and go, hey, I know you've never seen that before. Coach, is this in the Defensive Recognition 101 playbook? No, it's not in there, but I just wanted to show it to you. Boom, mind's blown, okay? So if it's that important that they need to see it, then it needs to be in that PowerPoint and it needs to be in their hands before they ever get to the film cut-up, okay? All right, third part, defensive recognition flashcards, okay? So I think this is probably one of the things that helps me more than anything, and I've got a lot of positive feedback from quarterbacks on it. So I take the Defensive Recognition 101 PowerPoint, all right? I go to print it, and I got you a screenshot right here, and let's say I'm printing, you know, slides 5 to 20, right? I want to go 4 handouts. On the handouts, I want to go 4 slides per page, which will end up getting you this. I'm going to print it, then I'm going to go cut those cards out, right on their lines, cut them out. There'll be a nice little rectangle card, not too big, right? And then I punch a hole in the top, put a little loop through it, and now they've got those flashcards. So sometimes I'll be in a quarterback meeting and I'll go, hey, get your flashcard, get your defensive recognition flashcards out. You got 5 minutes. I just want you to buzz through them, take some notes off of them. Let's keep learning from them. Sometimes they'll be on the bus to the game. And they're flipping through, you know, because in a game, whatever the team, whatever they kind of base their stuff in is I'm going to create them new flashcards based off our team that we're playing, the opponent. So you might see them on the bus on the way to the airport, and they could be flashing through those flashcards, all right? Again, they don't have to take a big book. They don't have to get their computer out. They can literally pull these flashcards out of their pocket if they want to and kind of flip through them, take some notes. I leave the back of them blank so they can jot some notes down, especially if it's game plan like notes. And this is really something that they like. It's simple, it's handy, all right? And they use it a lot. And again, I'm going back to my teaching days. We use a lot of flashcards to get our point across when we're teaching, all right? And when people are learning, you know, they're writing, they're visually looking at it, and flashcards is one of those things that has always kind of been a staple of learning. So I want to use it here, okay? Defensive recognition chess. I know this looks crazy. This is a screenshot of Amazon. I typed in football guys, toys for kids, okay? And these all popped up. I got this from a coach, a college coach that I went and spent some time with, and this is how he was teaching defensive recognition to his quarterbacks. So he's got these little football guys, he buys them, you know, whatever, Amazon, he gives you a little mat, and then he sets up a table, okay? And I thought this was cool. This is basically what he does. He sets up a table. This was when you clicked on images of that same thing. These are the images that pops up, okay? And look how intent these two little girls and this boy is trying to figure out who's doing what on this field. And they're probably 3, 4 years old, right? It's no different with your players, okay? So we'll set a table up, we'll put the field down, we'll put the guys on there, and we'll go, all right, we got a quarters look, we got a cover 4 look, all right, we got an over front, we got will fire, okay, and they're doing it, you know, and as they're doing it, you're asking them questions. All right, you're coming will fire, and we got stick called, what are we doing? Well, I'm replacing will fire with a hot because that's where my hot read is, and he can literally show that, right? All right, they're in a, you know, they're in a pre-snap, they're in a cover 4 look. Post-snap, they invert it. Show me what I got. And here they are, inverting their plays, moving the guys to where they're supposed to be. So again, this is a good little breakup, and it's a nice way of them interacting with what you want them to do mentally. Okay, and I like to do this with the defensive recognition stuff. Let's talk film study real quick. I think it's, you know, and I was bad at it too. You know, you tell your guys, hey, I need you to study film. That's all you say. They don't know how to study film. Half of coaches don't know how to study film. Why? Because they weren't taught as a player how to study film. So I think it's important that we teach them what film study looks like, okay? So these are just 5 kind of questions I want to throw out there when it comes to film study and just kind of get you thinking. You know, where do I find the film? This is something that's important that they need to know. What am I looking at? What do I watch? What am I looking for when I find what I'm watching? And then now what? Now what do I do with all this after I've studied film? Okay, so we're going to hit these 5 points, talk a little bit more about it. Again, I got this back up because your film study should be no different when it comes to everything else. If your philosophy and mindset is kicking it 10,000 times and all about reps, if your learning pyramid is set up, if your mindset is simple, efficient, 10,000 kicks, again, that needs to be reiterated as you're expecting your guys to study film, okay? So, first question is always, where do I find film? Gave us a screenshot. You know, you go on our Exos and there's folders everywhere, okay? So just for example, you know, the opponent is Georgia, and I mean, I don't even have these boxes open, and you can see ton of stuff. Again, what are they looking for? Where do I find what I need to find? So the easiest thing to do is just set them up their own folder. Okay, so it would be simple to go in here under offense and go QB folder, right? QB film, whatever you want to call it. And then from there, you just copy and paste or drag all your stuff to that QB film, and they can come in and know exactly what they're looking at. And I'm going to show you in a second how you break down the focuses so they could go into that folder and go, all right, this is Monday, this is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and it's all right there. Instead of them trying to go in here and figure out where things are, make it easier for them, all right? Because a lot of times you'll see kids will come in and they'll get frustrated because they don't know where the film's at, just like coaches do, and then they're just done. They're not even going to study, or they're just going to go do something else, okay? So make it easy for them to find the film. Again, teach them what they're looking at. Got you a good screenshot here. If you don't know anything about, what we're doing, why we got things called and put to where we are, you don't know what's going on. They need to know what they're looking at. They need to know up top that it's the first quarter and there's 13 minutes and 30 seconds left in the first quarter. They need to probably know the score. Hey, is this team trying to come back? Is this team trying to hold a lead? What are we doing here? Okay. They need to know what all these sayings down on here. What's the down and distance? What yard line are we on? Okay. Here's the defensive calls. These are defense and this is the offense, right? And they need to know what each of these boxes represent. So as they go and watch film by themselves, they can go and say, okay, I know exactly what I'm looking at before I ever hit play to start this play. Okay, so I think it's very important that they have a quick tutorial on what am I looking at, okay? And then what do I watch? Again, very, very similar to defensive recognition. Don't overwhelm them with 1,000 clips. If you want them to watch something and study it, then give them a sample size that they can study and get better at. All right? Keep the cut-ups simple and base. Same thing we've already talked about. And use the cut-ups to reiterate top calls. Again, if I'm looking at a green zone focused cut-up, okay, and their top calls is these three coverages, and they run these three coverages 90% of the time, and then you throw in there the one coverage, at the end that they only run, that you've seen them run one time in 5 games, I wouldn't put that in there. Let's get the 90% and let's get great at repping and watching the 90%, and then we'll be okay with that 1%. We'll be fine, all right? But don't get them caught up with chasing ghosts when you're using your cut up, okay? All right, so we're going to start with this last couple slides here. To me, you break it down as, again, I don't want to lose focus on being great at the offensive scheme that we've put in their head that they got to go execute. But I also need them to know some defense. So there's a fine balance there. So I want to show you some ideas of how to get defensive study focuses done, and then putting offensive study focuses in there and kind of meshing it together into 3 or 4 days that you have to do this, okay? So let's just talk defense, all right? On Sunday, introduce the opponent. Let them watch full games, kind of get a feel for the opponent. Buzz through full games, see how it all matches up. Maybe they watch 3 or 4 full games, kind of go through there and then take some notes on their own. But let's just intro the opponent, give them some full games to watch, and let them get a good feel for them. Monday, we're going to have a green zone focus. Okay, so 20 going in, and now cut-up's going to be based on what are their top calls on the 20 going in, what's that look like, okay? Then Tuesday would be a third down focus. All the third downs, all the different zones of the third downs, and what's their focus, what's their top calls. Again, I use that word focus, let's keep it focused on this. All right, their top calls, what they like to do, keeping it simple, keeping it efficient, being able to kick this 10,000 times in the reps as they watch them is no different than kicking it 10,000 times on the field in practice, okay? Wednesday's going to be an open field, maybe some miscellaneous focus there. And then Thursday, probably the 2 most important zones is your green zone trying to score and your third down keeping the ball in your hands. So we're going to review the green zone and third down on Thursday in a cut-up. So this is kind of how we're going to teach defense of the opponent, of who we're playing, in a defensive study type way, okay? Focuses on each day. Now let's flip it over to offensive concept study. They're going in and they're watching film on the same opponent that we're playing. Now let's base it off of what's our best green zone cut-up concepts versus whatever their best green zone calls are. And now you've pulled 10, 15, 20. Hey, these plays are great versus what you just studied on their defense. This is what we're looking at calling. Same thing on third down. Here we go. Here's their third down top calls. Here's what we want to do against them to counter that. And you're showing plays based off of that. Best open field, miscellaneous concepts. And then again, we're going to review the green zone and third down concepts. So they're very, very user-friendly once we call those plays and get in those certain zones, okay? So that's a way you can make your defensive study, okay, match up with your offensive study, and how we can attack a defense and get our guys to understand here's what the defenses look like in these focused zones. Here's how we're going to attack them in these focused zones, and have it broke down like that. So as they're watching these cut-ups that you have on these days, now you got to teach them, what am I looking for? And I just gave you a few ideas here. You know, what's the situation? Situation's important. You know, what are their top calls per situation? Where can they hurt us with their top calls? What do we like versus their top calls and why? Who are their weak links? Who are their best players? What do you see that I need to know? Maybe they see something that I need to know that might need to be added to the game plan. I don't know. Maybe they see something that I need to know that maybe I need to take out of the game plan, okay? And they see it, studying it, and then they let you know, because now you've built this relationship and trust with the quarterback to where now you're having some dialogue and you're actually getting the best stuff that he feels comfortable with and the best stuff that you feel comfortable with calling. But we got some factual data on why we want to make those calls, okay? And again, you might, you know, what are their top calls per situation? Heck, you may give them already that on a piece of paper before you ever start these cut-ups. That's fine too. So maybe that question comes out, okay? I just gave you some ideas here on what you're looking for, what they need to understand, what they're looking for as they're watching film, okay? And then now what? I'm a big believer in they got it right, okay? I don't like to give them a lot of handouts that's already got the stuff on it. I want them to write what I'm saying, write what they're seeing. So I'm a big believer in having them write. It's all about what the player knows and remembers. So again, if your players aren't doing very well with flashcards, then take the flashcards out and maybe play more chess. If your players think playing defensive recognition chess is silly because they're not remembering it from there, then maybe you go more flashcard based, then you go chess, whatever. If you got more visual guys, maybe you're doing more cut-ups than you are chess. But again, it's all about the player. It's not about you. It's all about the player and what they can remember, okay? Keep it fresh. That's why I like to change it up with the different ways that I gave you. Keep it fresh and always hold them accountable, okay? Quizzes, tests, bell ringer type stuff that they need to do. And we'll talk more about that in quarterback meetings in another presentation, but you got to hold them accountable. You can't just assume that we're sitting here and things that you're telling them they're automatically keeping in their mind and remembering. You got to make sure that you're holding them accountable for what they need to know, okay? So kind of in closing, like I said, this is presentation number 3 of 5. I hope you got something out of it. I really appreciate you. If you've been on, if you've seen all 3 of them, then great. I'm not boring you, and we'll move on to number 4 and number 5. If, you know, I've tweaked some interest, and maybe you go back and you haven't seen 1 and 2, you go back and see 1 and 2 as we move forward. But this is my contact information, my email. Feel free to email me, and then you got my social media accounts there. Really appreciate you taking the time. I hope to see you in presentation number 4. Thanks.